over the last few days, not only have politicians come out and made statements about the Michael Brown incident, but you also had celebrities speak out. Everyone from Ti to Nelly. You've had Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy, as well as David Banner. I think one of the biggest points that I think David Banner made over the last 2 days is that he talked about how in particular, police officers don't see any value for young black men, because young black men also don't see any value for their own lives. And so, what is that conversation? How do we bring that back? How do we show people that there is value in black life, and that black bodies matter, and that there needs to be more of a comprehensive conversation on how we rebuild those communities, particularly communities of color?
Great
All right,
question.
it sounds like you're trying to move this conversation to talk about what about black on black crime. Is that what,
Let's not go there.
No, but that's something that's always the opposite. The conversation a lot of times get turned around when they say that when we talk about how the fact that the police is killing black men is that black men are also killing black men. We have to have a serious conversation and say that yes, all life matters regardless of who's doing the killing.
Real.
I think that's
a real life story.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree, because it's interesting that, and someone had mentioned it just in, the Twitter world, and actually my mother even brought it up, who places the value on our lives, right? If we can do the things that we do, whether it's Chicago, LA, wherever it may be, the violence, we can take our own lives, and we do not get all up in arms like this. There definitely is a lot being done on the ground in Chicago, just in, conversations that I know, but never to this degree. And I think that perhaps, I don't know, I'm not a white officer, I don't know, maybe they do view it in that way, and they just kind of say, okay, whatever, maybe it wasn't expected, in Ferguson that there would be this much backlash, because that is what they see. They see us in the media killing one another, so what would make them think that, oh, now you care, right? And I think for me that is part of my frustration, because it only seems that we get this enraged when the death happens at the hands of an officer, be he black or white. They just happen to all be white. Black officers have killed us too, but the point is who places the value on our lives? And I think that kind of is part of the conversation that also needs to be had, because if we get this upset, what about the young lady who was killed in Chicago when she was in the park and Mrs. Obama went to her funeral? She was just sitting in the park chilling. She was just as innocent as, some of these brothers who have been shot and killed. So that's my question. Who places the value on our lives, and why do we only seem to get this upset when it's at the hands of law enforcement? Why don't we do the same thing when we do it to one another, to say, look, this has got to stop? And I think if we begin to voice our opinions, or however we may feel about it in that way, then other people may begin to believe that we really do value ourselves, because we'll stop killing one another.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think what we have to realize is that nobody puts the value on our life but ourselves. I think here is this idea that we have to prove ourselves to who? To white supremacy, to some hegemonic power, to anybody to say, hey, my life matters. Of course your life matters. I think it's the situations where we're put in. Black on black crime, of course, is going to be put in the media, but white on white crime is the same, right? Of course, blacks are always going to be criminalized all the time. Here's the issue. When you have blacks in these urban poor neighborhoods, it's survival, right? When you want to talk about gangs, when you want to talk about why, black lives in Chicago or wherever, you have to situate the opportunities, you have to situate, the disadvantages that these young people are going through. And so the reason why I believe there's such an uproar to what's happening with Mike Brown is because right now we're trying to speak to the root of it. The root of it is that when you have a police force who have patrolled you for so long, and while they're patrolling you in these areas, you're killing each other while they're patrolling it, and they're almost instigating it in some senses, because even when gang life and black on black crime happen, I mean, it roots back to even with Los Angeles and why the Bloods and Crips started, and there is no space for black solidarity, so it does come against each other. And so why I think it's important what's happening now is because I feel like we've tried to have communication with the police, but it never happens. This idea of what the police is supposed to do to protect and serve, when was the last time a police officer came down your neighborhood and said, hey, how are you doing today? How can I help you? Are you lost? You need help somewhere? Like, that's their job, to protect and serve. But again and again, the way they target black youth without even understanding is criminalizing, and now they want to talk about thugs. And so what happens is you have your black intellectuals, and then you have your thugs, and then here I am, a college graduate, and I'll still get arrested by police because my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, my PhD does not mean anything. So I think it's a very important time, and I think people should be angry because, you know, we have to figure out what's the next step. And to, the other point of saying, hey, like, young black youth are seeing this and they're wondering, like, what's going to be the future. I think because if you look back at any kind of civil rights, era, these are like steps that led up to things. So we're talking about Oscar Grant, we're talking about Trayvon Martin, we're talking about, Eric Garner, now we're talking about Mike Brown. So something has to stop. Like, something has to, like, really kind of get things changing. I don't think we can let another incident like this happen. So I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen in Ferguson. I don't know what the outlook is. But part of me has a little excitement to know that people are upset and angry and are in an uproar because, I mean, it's time that we really kind of come together and not let these little social movements happen and then die out. It's time that we sustain something and hold police accountable so that we kind of really change the system because it's against us. We have